Hello, this is Group 6 and we will be reporting about leadership in an organizational setting. This is part 1. At the end of this presentation, we are expected to do the following. Define leadership and shared leadership, list the main competencies of effective leaders and discuss the limitations of the competency perspective of leadership, describe the people-oriented and task-oriented leadership styles, outline the path-goal theory of leadership, summarize the leadership substitutes theory, distinguish transformational leadership from transactional and charismatic leadership, describe the 4 elements of transformational leadership, describe the implicit leadership perspective, and discuss similarities and differences in the leadership styles of men and women. We begin. What is leadership? Leadership is the ability to influence, motivate, and enable others to contribute towards the effectiveness of the organization of which they are members of. It is also the process of social influence which maximizes the efforts of others towards the achievement of a goal. Now, people might ask, is leadership the same as management? And the answer is no. What is management? Management is the use of authority inherent in a designated formal rank to obtain compliance from organizational members. It is also the process of administering and controlling the affairs of the organization. What is shared leadership? In this view, leadership is plural, not singular. It doesn't operate out of one formally assigned position or role. Instead, a team or work unit may have several leaders at the same time. Shared leadership calls for formal leaders that are willing to delegate power, collaborative culture because employees take on shared leadership roles when co-workers support them for their initiative, and employees to learn to influence others through their enthusiasm, logical analysis, and involvement of co-workers in their idea or vision. Here are the perspectives of leadership. We have competency, behavioral, contingency, transformational, and implicit leadership perspective. We go to the competency perspective. Competencies are personal characteristics that lead to superior performance in a leadership role. This can be skills, knowledge, or values. Early research tells that there are very few traits that predicted effective leadership. Lao Tzu, a Chinese philosopher, says effective leaders are selfless, honest, fair, and hardworking. Plato, a Greek philosopher, says that great leaders have wisdom and a superior capacity for logical thinking. Emerging works identified several competencies and personal characteristics that lead to superior performance. These are the 8 competencies of effective leaders: personality, self-concept, drive, integrity, leadership motivation, knowledge of the business, cognitive or practical intelligence, and emotional intelligence. These are the limitations of competency perspective. First, it assumes that all effective leaders have the same personal characteristics that are equally important in all situations. This is probably a false assumption, because leadership is far too complex to have a universal list of traits that apply to every condition. 2. Alternative combinations of competencies might work just as well. 3. Assumes that leadership is within the person. People are effective leaders because of their favorable relationships with followers, so effective leaders can't be identified without considering the quality of these relationships. And last, competencies refer to leadership potential, not performance. Personal characteristics might influence only our perception that someone is a leader. Now we have behavioral perspective of leadership. Under this perspective, we have 2 clusters. First are the people-oriented behaviors. This cluster includes behaviors such as showing mutual trust and respect for subordinates, demonstrating a genuine concern for their needs, and having a desire to look out for their welfare. Leaders with a strong people-oriented style listen to their employee suggestions, do personal favors for employees, support their interests when required, and treat employees as equals. The other cluster represents a task-oriented leadership style and includes behaviors that define structure and work roles. Task-oriented leaders assign employees to specific tasks, clarify their work duties and procedures, ensure that they follow company rules, and push them to reach their performance capacity. They establish stretch goals and challenge employees to push beyond these high standards. Choosing between task versus people-oriented leadership. Should leaders be task-oriented or people-oriented? This is a difficult question to answer because each style has advantages and disadvantages. Absenteeism, grievances, turnover, and job dissatisfaction are higher among employees who work with supervisors with a very low levels of people-oriented leadership. Job performance is lower among employees who work for supervisors with low levels of task-oriented leadership. And research suggests that university students value task-oriented instructors because they want clear and well-prepared lectures that abide by their unit's objectives. Disadvantages of behavioral leadership. One problem with behavioral leadership perspective is that the two categories are broad generalizations that mask specific behaviors within each category. For instance, task-oriented leadership includes planning and work activities, clarifying roles, and monitoring operations and performance. Each of these clusters of activities are fairly distinct and likely to have different effects on employee well-being and performance. A second concern is that the behavioral approach assumes that high levels of both styles are best in all situations. In reality, the best leadership style depends on a situation. This is the end of part 1, and thank you for listening.